Hello music fans. This video is about my top 13 prog metal albums of all time. I decided to make this video and I'm going to start from my number 13 and work my way up to my number 1. Hopefully you like some of the stuff on here. Hopefully there's some stuff on here that you haven't heard before and it inspires you to check it out. I'd also be interested to hear anybody else's lists so that I can discover some new music as well. So progressive metal, pretty much my favorite genre of music. A lot of what I listen to, it's about like 20% of what I listen to, and I listen to progressive rock as well, and I'll probably have another video on that. And then I listen to other stuff like post-hardcore, heavy metal, mathcore, melodic death metal, like all sorts of different things here. But prog metal is probably my favorite. And starting with number 13 here is Opeth, and this is Ghost Reveries. I should also say that I'm limiting this to one album per band so that this isn't all like Dream Theater and Between the Buried and Me, Protest the Hero, Haken. Spoiler alert for what some of my top picks are going to be. But yeah, Opeth is on the list with Ghost Reveries, which is my favorite album from theirs. I really like the opening song, Ghosts of Perdition. It just kind of starts soft and then it just hits you with intense growls. So this one is like progressive death metal. It's before Opeth switched to more of a prog rock sound. This is their second last album that had growls on it, and after starting at Heritage, which is 2 albums after this, Opeth is not really a metal band anymore. They don't growl, they're more of a classic style prog rock band. I like both eras of Opeth, the progressive death metal era and the progressive rock era. But this one is my favorite because it's got good elements of both. The album after this, Watershed, is also very amazing. Probably my second favorite, but they have lots of other great albums too, like Blackwater Park and Still Life, which are also really amazing, and Deliverance. And they did make one album before Heritage that didn't have death growls, and that was Damnation, which is also pretty cool. I like all their stuff. I'm not as big a fan of their first 2 albums. They're kind of more unpolished, raw production and more on the black metal side, so not exactly my style, but everything else that Opeth does is amazing. My number 12 is going to be Periphery, the debut album by Periphery. And it's from, what year is it from? 2010. And this is maybe the album that popularized the djent movement, or at least it's one of the few. Like Meshuggah and Sixth had been doing it before this, but Periphery kind of brought it to the masses, made it really popular. This album has really awesome guitar riffs, really good syncopated, djenty rhythms, and yeah, it's got clean singing vocals as well as screaming. Unlike Meshuggah, that's basically all screaming, Periphery has some melody to them. So if you kind of like the groove of Meshuggah but feel like it's lacking melody, then maybe you'll like Periphery. And my number 11 is going to be Symphony X, Paradise Lost. So this is progressive metal as well, but with more of a power metal influence and like symphonic and neoclassical shredding. So Michael Romeo plays the guitar. He's an amazing guitar player on this album. He's kind of the driving force behind Symphony X, the main songwriter and the founder of the group. His guitar playing and composition is amazing. It starts off with like an orchestral kind of film score sounding song called Oculus Ex Inferni, which is really cool. Then one of my favorite songs out here is Eve of Seduction, which is really awesome. They have catchy choruses, really great riffs, and their guitar solos are just amazing. My number 10, this is going to be a lesser known one. It's probably not on most people's list. The other 3 like Symphony X, Opeth, Periphery. They're maybe not surprises to be in a top 13 prog, but this one is Art by Numbers. Some people have probably heard of them, some people maybe not. This is called Reticence the Musical from 2012, and it's pretty much all clean singing, the odd scream here or there, and it's kind of like Symphony X style neoclassical guitar playing. Lots of very busy guitar work, lots of arpeggios, leads, and tapping just kind of going the whole time, kind of like if you're a fan of the Human Abstract or Protest the Hero, that kind of thing where there's just wild guitar leads going the whole time, even while there's singing happening. I like that kind of stuff. I know that's not for everybody, but it's fun, and there's some cool twists and turns on here. There's some songs that are kind of like jazzy almost, with some, there's that song, I forget what song it is, but they like kind of snap their fingers and they whistle, and it's got like a jazzy vibe to it. That's a very cool song. Yeah, I really like this album. I believe that their guitar teacher was AJ Minette from the Human Abstract, who is also amazing and might make an appearance on this list as well. And my number 9, Caligulas Horse. This is Moments from Ephemeral City from 2011. Very cool album. This is a progressive metal band from Australia. I don't think they do screams at all. It's all clean singing. Good singing on here. Really good guitar playing. Really good composition. Yeah, good to have an Australian band on here. I think they're the only Australian band that I have in my top 13. There are other great Australian progressive metal bands that are really good but didn't quite make my top 13. Like Nea Obliviscaris is a good example. Toe Hider, Carnival. Yeah, there's a bunch of really good Australian prog metal. But I decided to go with Caligulas Horse as my pick from Australia. And my number 8 is called Lore. The album's called Lore. The band is called Today I Caught the Plague. This is another lesser known one. They're from Canada. They've actually changed their name from Today I Caught the Plague to The Kindred, but I decided to pick this one from when they were still called Today I Caught the Plague. It's their first full-length album. This is for fans of bands like Protest the Hero. The drummer Mike from this band actually went on and joined Protest the Hero, so he's no longer in Today I Caught the Plague, or he's no longer in the Kindred, which is what they're called now. Their first album, Lore, is really amazing. Yeah, I think if you like Protest the Hero, you'll like this. The vocals are very unique. I think it's pretty much all clean. It's melodic singing. There's always a pitch to what he's doing, but he kind of like has a lot of like grit and belting to it, and it can almost sound like it's shrieking, but it's all in pitch, which is kind of cool. So it's singing, not screaming. But yeah, it's very cool riffs. I highly recommend it. And their album, when they were the Kindred, called Life in Lucidity, is also great, and thought about putting that one on the list instead, but decided to go with Lore. My number 7, Native Construct, Quiet World. Another lesser known band, and unfortunately they only released one album and now they're done. So a one and done kind of band, but it's a really amazing, adventurous album. If it reminds me, there's a release from this year, the Others by No One album, Book 2, Where Stories Come From. This album is like that one, maybe even better. And I love both of those albums. Others by No One didn't quite make my top 13, but Native Construct is here. Really awesome for fans of Others by No One, for fans of Haken, Between the Buried and Me. Yeah, there's some songs on here that sound almost just like 50s crooner, like Broadway musical kind of songs, and then all of a sudden it's like a blast beat screaming metal section. It takes you on lots of twists and turns. My number 6 is Altered State by Tesseract. This is their only album not to feature Daniel Tompkins on vocals, and though I love all their albums and I love Daniel Tompkins' vocals, I also really like the vocals of Ash O'Hara on here. This is progressive metal of the gent style, so it's got this groovy, syncopated, down-tuned, genty riffs, and yeah, the grooves are undeniable on this. They bring out the saxophone on this album too. They have some songs with saxophone solos, which is just really cool to hear in a gent context. You don't hear that very often. And my number 5 is The Human Abstract, Digital Veil. I said they might make an appearance. This is AJ Minette on guitar, and Dean is the other guitarist. Trying to forget his last name. Amazing dual harmony leads, counterpoint like in the guitar melody lines, just very classical music inspired, very busy guitar work. There's like leads going the whole time with like sweeping, tapping, crazy stuff. My favorite song on here would be called Antebellum, but they're all great. Every song on here, masterpiece. From here on in, like these albums are pretty much like 10 out of 10. So Digital Veil, 10 out of 10. Actually, pretty much every album on this list is 10 out of 10. Let's be real here. My number 4, Haken. I have this one on vinyl, so I'm showing that. Aquarius, their first album. I know a lot of people say The Mountain's their favorite. I'm picking Aquarius. I really love their first album. I think the first song of theirs that I heard was Celestial Elixir, the closing track of this. It's a 17-minute epic, and it is just amazing. Probably my favorite song on here, but every song on here is great. They're like, it's pretty much all clean singing. Actually, on this album, there is one song that has some screaming, and I think that's one of their only songs that ever does. After that, they pretty much stick to singing, clean singing. But they're kind of like the new Dream Theater. Like, I think they're the next big thing. They've taken over the reins of Dream Theater in progressive metal. Dream Theater were the kings, but I think now it might be Haken and maybe Between the Buried and Me as the kings. But yeah, let's go to the original kings of progressive metal for my number 3 pick, which is Dream Theater. Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory from 1999. Really awesome song. Maybe my favorite song on here is Fatal Tragedy. Lots of great songs. Concept album. I'm sure it's on a lot of people's lists if they're making a top 10 prog metal. Alright, we're at my top 2 here. My number 2 is Colors by Between the Buried and Me. This is from 2008 and really awesome. This is where Between the Buried and Me got even more progressive. Their album before that, this Alaska, was also awesome and kind of progressive. Their first 2 albums were a little bit progressive, but maybe a little bit more on the metalcore side. That's their self-titled and Silent Circus. But this is where they became legendary progressive metal band that they are today. And every album since this has been amazing. And they released Colors 2 this year, which is a sequel to this, and that's also really good. But I think the original has more kind of street cred, so I'm putting that as my number 2. And my Between the Buried and Me pick. And then my number 1 is Kazaya by Protest the Hero. Had to put something by Protest the Hero on here, and it's Kazaya, number 1. This is really what got me into progressive metal. I might not have even known what progressive metal was at the time in 2005 when this came out. I was just a guitar player. I was into guitar, and I heard this album and it just blew my mind. The guitar playing, it's also very busy guitar leads the whole time. The vocals are influenced by kind of punk and hardcore and metalcore and emo and post-hardcore. So they're kind of high pitch. Some people might have a complaint with this album that the vocals sound a little whinier, but I think they're great. Rhodey gets even better on vocals after this, but there's something about how young they were when they made Kazaya that's just amazing as well. They were still teenagers when they wrote it and recorded it. It's just very, very cool stuff. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed my top 13 progressive metal albums. I'd be happy to hear some suggestions. I'll have some other videos about my top 13 prog rock albums. I'm going to split that into two though and do top 13 before the year 2000 and then a top 13 from the year 2000 and onwards, because there's almost like different eras of prog rock that are very hard to compare to each other. And then maybe I'll make more like top lists from different genres, like maybe I'll do post-hardcore or heavy metal or something like that. We'll see. Till next time, peace out.